Welcome in to Action Movie Rewind here on Mackey and Judd, where we do deep dives into some of the most prominent action movies of all time. And we have made a commitment to knock out, at some point in this journey, all of the Fast and the Furious franchise films. And we've made it to number 2 here, boys. Too Fast, Too Furious from 2003, the year that old Mackey graduated high school. A lot of cultural things and trends that I remember from the early 2000s that I think probably stem from these first 2 Fast and the Furious movies. You know, people putting spoilers on crappy cars and track lighting and some of the clothes, the frosted tips.
The low-rise jeans girls used to wear. Like oh, my God, it's just absurd. Some of the fashion trends are amazing. The Echo Unlimited, I noticed some Echo Unlimited.
Yep.
If you remember some Echo. Oh, my God. Mark Echo. That was huge back then.
Yes, Paul Walker was kind of a trendsetter for that generation of teenagers.
We have a statement on that, I think, when we get to it.
Yeah, I got a thought on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get to our statements on this movie here, but let's set it up here. Let's frame up Too Fast, Too Furious. The sequel focuses on ex-police officer Brian O'Connor, who relocates from Los Angeles to Miami to start over. Becoming involved in the street racing scene in his new city, Brian befriends car-savvy Tej, played by Ludacris, and Suki, played by Devin Aoki. But his competitive streak ends when federal agents apprehend him and he must enter into a deal with the FBI. Working with new partner Roman Pierce, played by Tyrese, Brian begins a dangerous mission to take down a powerful drug dealer. 36% on Rotten Tomatoes. Seems a little harsh to me.
That's a little harsh.
The critics' consensus says beautiful people and beautiful cars in a movie that won't tax your brain cells.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Oh, okay.
Sounds about right.
That's very accurate.
This movie had a $76 million budget that they turned into $236 million at the box office. Nice job. Mm-hmm. Paul Walker, Tyrese Gibson, Ludacris, Eva Mendes. Some production notes for you guys here before we get into our statements. So Vin Diesel was not in this movie, notably, nor was he in the next movie. But he was offered $25 million to return in the sequel as Dom Toretto. This is 20 years ago. This dude was offered $25 million to come back for the sequel. However, he refused after reading the screenplay as he felt that the movie's potential was inferior compared to the original. Yeah. And instead, he chose to appear in the Chronicles of Riddick instead, which did pretty good at the box office, but
terrible movie, though.
Not quite the level of the Fast franchise. He later on in different interviews said he regrets the decision that the franchise deserved to have Dom in the sequel, and in retrospect, he would have said yes.
How is Vin Diesel? So, one, he's right. Like, the first one's really pretty good. This one is fun, but it's not nearly as well written. But how is Vin Diesel, of all people, making career decisions based on what he considers to be the art of the content?
Right. And then choosing the Chronicles of Riddick.
I'll be on stage in Broadway. Screw you.
He got like this weird like, I don't know, feeling that he was bigger than that. Like, he did Chronicles of Riddick. He did Triple X. Do you guys remember Triple X or Agent X, whatever the hell it is?
Super weird.
So like I feel like he thought he had moved on from these campy, kind of funny, corny car roles, and he thought like he was now this like big shot, maybe like Tom Cruise-esque action. And it's like, dude, you're Vin Diesel. Like, you're just a big goofy guy, and that's okay.
You're not Denzel Washington or Tom Hanks here, guy. You're turning down $25 million. And of course, you know, sometimes the more you try to get away. I mean, Daniel Craig did this with the Bond franchise for the last 3. He's like, I'm never doing a Bond movie again. It's like, bro, you're James Bond now. Okay.
And he's great though. Like that's the thing. Like, it's, oh my God, this guy's too good. Like with Vin, they're probably like, hey, dude, you don't want it? Too bad.
Yeah. So also notably missing from this movie was Ja Rule. So Ja Rule was in the original, and Ja Rule was offered. So Ja Rule made $15,000 in the original. He wasn't quite. He was becoming Ja Rule at the time, but by this point he was full-fledged Ja Rule. Like, he was a collaborative hip hop icon, right? And he was offered $500,000 to return for the sequel, which was much more than the $15,000 he made for the first movie. And according to the director, quote, Ja got too big for himself. He turned down $500,000. He was acting like he was too big to be in the sequel. He wouldn't return our calls. And instead, the director hired Chris Bridges, otherwise known as Ludacris, as the substitute.
I love
And
Ludacris.
I think Ja Rule had a nice little run there, but I think Ludacris is higher up on the sort of the hip hop icon pecking order. So, sorry, Ja. All right, boys, we'll start with Judd here. Statements about Too Fast, Too Furious.
Okay, I'm just going to immediately rip the Band-Aid off about the wardrobe of Paul Walker, a.k.a. Brian O'Connor, and say this. For a guy who's supposed to be cool, Brian O'Connor's outfits, for the most part, resemble mine.
Yeah.
Like those, I've got those shorts. I wear them all the time. Like
West
those
Coast
shorts.
Shoppers? You got the
Yes,
West
I've
Coast
got them.
Shoppers
I've got them,
t-shirt?
and I love them. They're very comfortable. But like literally, I'm like, dude stole my wardrobe for this film.
Yeah.
And like Phil said, it transcended. Oh my god, I got to get these. I got to get those. Now I'm sure his shoes beat my shoes, but I'm saying as far as the actual wardrobe, the clothes, my god, it's like me on a Saturday.
T-shirts. He had that kind of Vans look. I don't know if he was wearing Vans, but at one point he had kind of the high skateboarder socks.
Yeah, he had Chucks on at one point too. He had like Chuck Taylors
That's
on
cool.
at one point.
I love
Yeah, had the
Chucks.
high socks and like probably some Jordans or Air Maxes. Yes, it was.
To me, he dressed. The first person I thought of was he's dressing like Tony Hawk, the prominent skateboarder from the 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah. Baggier T-shirt. Yeah.
You think about that hairstyle too, with kind of the frosted tips and the hair gel. Justin Timberlake, early 2000s, and Paul Walker.
Oh yeah.
Maybe a little Freddie Prinze, but those guys, man, millions of 17 to 25-year-old guys styled their hair that way because of Paul Walker and Justin Timberlake.
But the wardrobe, I can't get past the
Oh
wardrobe.
my God, so good.
Iconic, man. All right, Dex.
All right, this piggybacks perfect after Judd's statement. My statement is Brian O'Connor he is the perfect white guy. Like he is so stereotypical white dude that thinks he's like the hip guy and the guy that's a lot cooler than he thinks he is. The "don't worry about it" scene, which that has taken over TikTok like over the last year, where he's talking to Tyrese and he's like trying to figure out like, what are you doing? Like what is this all about? Don't worry about it, Like it's the Keanu kind of cringe factor, but also like only Brian O'Connor and I should say Paul Walker can pull that type of stuff off, where he thinks he's a lot cooler than he is. And then it to Judd's point, the fashion, his aura, his whole being like spawned that type of dude that probably Phil knew a lot, but because I was 11, 12 when this came out. Phil was graduating high school, so he probably had obviously a lot more social cues and awareness than I did. But I'm sure the people probably not. But people in high school, Phil got to experience and see that a lot more, where I was like, graduating elementary school. But it dawned the perfect, hilarious white guy. Brian O'Connor is that dude, and I love it for it.
It's like this laid back, a little bit. I think what makes me uncomfortable is he's clearly altering his dialogue
Yeah.
to sound different or
Yes.
almost to sound like Tyrese.
Yes.
And so it feels a little uncomfortable how forced it is. And maybe even how it's like he's like almost trying to mimic a black person in some of his, like he's going out of his way to act that way. And I don't know, it may be a little uncomfortable to watch it, but it was definitely a cultural thing back in the early 2000s. I think black and hip hop culture spilled into the mainstream so much in the early 2000s, and a lot of white guys too were. I don't know. It was.
Oh,
it was a weird confluence
You're right.
of culture and young guys.
I was told to be. No, you go. I was told to be Paul Walker for Halloween from my girlfriend.
You've got some Paul Walker vibes.
There's some Paul Walker vibes.
The most important thing though is this, and he's got this down to a science, and I'm guessing it's how he used to walk, but his walk is like
it's a fake limp.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a fake limp. Yeah.
And
That
it's
was the cool way to
side
walk.
to side.
Tiny strut. Yeah.
And the shirt's long, so it's hanging
Sup, Suki?
out. Yeah. Like it's this it's this specialized walk.
Oh God.
It's interesting. All right, I'll go with this one. I'll take us down a different path here. Making a living as a street racer seems like a very stressful profession. Mm-hmm. So every time, because the beginning of the movie, he is a professional street racer, and I love how he gets a phone call from Ludacris. Hey, we start in 4 minutes. I'll be there, cuz. And he hops in his car, drives 400 miles an hour down the freeway, and he's just there in 4 minutes. He's just waiting for the phone call to come down there at the last minute. But you're constantly running from the police. You're driving 160 miles an hour through city streets with all sorts of things you could potentially crash into. You're jumping bridges. I don't know. And were they racing for $3,500? When they say $3,500, right? I was like, it's 30 grand and you're winning that every race. Maybe it's worth it, but 3,500? So how many you're gonna have to race how many times dangerously? It just doesn't seem like enough money to be driving that recklessly, however many times you have to do it. But it seems like a very stressful profession is my statement.
Absolutely. I think that's fair. All right, here's mine. And this is a problem in the franchise that I have seen. So we're through 2 of them now. This is a problem that I broached in the first one, and when I believe it was O'Connor went in undercover to a raid where he was helping arrest people that he had tried to befriend as a bad guy. So in this one, here's my statement. How do O'Connor and Roman Pierce continue to go throughout the course of this film to visit federal agents and not get made? Like they're supposedly being tailed constantly, right? Like those two guys are tailing them all the time.
Yeah.
But like there are multiple scenes where they like go personally update, and it's not like at a secluded thing. They're like going to a house or something
with like tons of windows and stuff.
Yes, they would have been made in a heartbeat. Like this film clearly either wants you to believe that the bad guys are total blithering, incompetent morons, which might be true, or they just don't care.
It is hilarious because at one point, man, they're following us so closely. We need to light their windshield on fire to get away from them. But then in another scene, they're not following us at all, so we can just have meetings with the FBI and plain daylight with gigantic windows. I think the police and the FBI are not always the most thought out characters in these movies. I miss Eva Mendes. I'm going to jump in here real quick. I miss, because I just pulled this up on Wikipedia.
Retired.
She hasn't acted since 2014.
Yeah.
Yeah, her last movie was Lost River in 2014.
Mm-hmm. Because she's married to Ryan Gosling, I believe, correct?
Or they're partners. I don't know if
they're partners, and I think they have kids too. And I believe she did an interview. I saw this a few years ago. I don't know if it was like with Entertainment Tonight or something, but she wanted to focus on being a mom and didn't want to go back into acting at all. And obviously, like, if her partner is Ryan bleeping Gosling, who's arguably like the biggest actor on the planet the last like 5-6 years, or at least one of the highest grossing, I should say, why would you want to act? And if you kind of rid off that chapter, it makes a lot of sense. But I do miss her. I'm with Phil.
She was every bit as big as Ryan Gosling, if not bigger, for a while. I mean, she was in early in her career. So this was one of her like first 7 or 8 movies: Too Fast, Too Furious, and then it was Once Upon a Time in Mexico.
Great movie.
Stuck on You. Hitch was probably her peak. She was in Knocked Up. She was in a couple other movies of prominence. So she was huge, like 15
Desperate
years
Housewives
ago.
too.
Was she a Desperate Housewife?
No, that is not her.
Are you thinking of
that's
Eva
not her?
Are you thinking of Eva
Eva
Longoria?
Longoria. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's very close. Same name, same first name. Same first name.
So this whole time you were like, oh, Tony Parker's ex-wife is pretty good in Too Fast, Too Furious.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. It's exactly what I was thinking. I mean, you know what? I gotta admit. I mean, it's very close. It's very close.
Amazing.
I don't know. I mean, maybe they were prominent in the same era, but I don't know if they were. She was apparently in the music video Miami with Will Smith in 1998. She was in
funny.
Hole in My Soul, Aerosmith in 1997, and also Act a Fool, which was, I think, in this movie, Ludacris, 2003. So she's been in some music videos. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. All right, back to Declan.
All right, my next statement. My statement is this film laid the groundwork for cars doing things in the franchise they shouldn't ever be able to do. So
Yeah. I like it.
quickly, let's go back to the first movie, just Fast and the Furious. It's street racing, right? It's the politics of street racing. It's an inside glimpse of what this could be like, and that's what it is. Just them racing cars against each other. Some good guys, some bad guys, some cops involved, but not really. Like, it's mostly just watching like 2 different sides of street racing, and that's fun. It's fine. In Too Fast, Too Furious, we get a little bit more of that, but then the cops and FBI are involved. And at the end of the movie, we fly a car into a boat
Yep.
that does not explode, that does not cause. I mean, it caused some injuries, like Tyrese breaks his arm, and they're able to apprehend the antagonist. But this laid the groundwork for the next like 6-7 movies to do things that cars should never be allowed to do. They like, just to give you a sneak peek, they fly cars out of airplanes in the next movie. They're flying cars down mountains in the next movie. Like, Too Fast, Too Furious laid the groundwork for Fast and the Furious franchise to be completely over the top with that car going into the boat.
I love that last scene. I love they just said, listen, okay, this movie doesn't have Dom Toretto, so we need to. How do we put a couple more points of emphasis on this movie? Some of the other scenes here, and I've got a statement on one, but I like that they went over the top, and I think part of the reason why this franchise is always just guaranteed $500 million at the box office is because. Yeah, it's like it's cool. It's way unrealistic. You have to suspend your disbelief for 2 hours when you watch these. All right, Judd.
All right. My next statement is going to be a positive one about the film with what I believe to be the most effective scene. Like, just as far as like it could happen, it's extremely disturbing and it's well done. When they use the rat on the detective and put the rat in the heat and do the blowtorch and basically say it is going to continue to go south and basically destroy you unless you agree to do what we want. That is a great scene.
Yes.
Because they show just enough where it makes you cringe. Like, it really makes you like, I don't know if I can watch this, but it's completely plausible. Like, you could do that. So I thought that was probably their best, most effective use of being gross.
My statement on that, because I had the same thought, was the rat under a bucket torture method is very innovative. I don't know that we've seen anything like that in a movie before. And then they pull the bucket off, and you see all the claw and bite marks on the guy's stomach and stuff.
It's when they get quiet that you have to start worrying. Just like, oh God, I don't do well with like rodents and like mice and that. I don't know. I don't do well with a lot of things, but especially not those either. So I agree. Not good.
So disgusting. Okay, high school Phil Mackey definitely tried the stare and drive tactic a couple times to impress girls.
Oh my God!
Did you really?
In his 1992 silver Camry with a tape deck.
It's not even that cool.
Oh, it's cool.
I didn't even think it was that cool.
Yeah, it's badass. Now, I wouldn't do he was looking straight sideways at, I think Eva Mendes was in the car with him, right? And so he was looking straight sideways. Old Macadac would look kind of 45-degree angle, and just to be sure on those Connie roads in Buffalo, Minnesota. Oh. And he would probably only do it for like 2 or 3 seconds. Not quite the Paul Walker level, but oh yeah, you want to impress a gal, the stare and drive tactic in your early 90s Camry.
Did it work?
You're welcome, guys. No, it did not.
Because I would tell you, look at the road, you idiot.
It did not work. Yeah. Why are you staring at me? Please just drop me off. Let me out of the car.
Oh my God.
Anyhow.
My next statement, there's nothing like a good car chase in any movie to remind me how terrible cops are at their jobs. So just numerous times throughout this film, like cops trying to get down the street racers. And even at one point, at the beginning of the movie when Brian gets apprehended after his street race, nine cops with guns on a streetcar seem a little aggressive for street racing to me. It just like seems a little bit over the top to have like a dozen cops. I don't know if you noticed when he realized he's going to get had. There's like 9 of them surrounding them with guns. Like, it just seems a little aggressive for just some street racing.
Yeah, why would you need that, right? Is it assumed that he has some sort of ammunition in the car because he's an edgy street racer or drugs or something? Or I was kind of wondering the same thing. This seems a little excessive to be. Listen, the guy's just trying to make a living, driving up and down the streets at 2:00 in the morning. 9 guns on him.
And just watching them try to keep up with the street racers. And I'm sure like there are definitely some cops that are trained for this, that obviously they have to pursue at high speed, so they're used to
LA,
it. But
every day in LA,
exactly.
TV ratings go through the roof.
Paul Walker and Tyrese, like, just making the cops look like idiots. And it just reminds me every time we watch movies like this, like, man, they make cops look like idiots in this job. Yeah. And it always reminds me in these Fast and the Furious or any hilarious action movie, they're just awful at doing that.
This franchise clearly hates cops.
Yes.
Which brings me to this statement. So they basically do a great bait and switch on the cops to get away from them to go chase the bad guy. And like they all go in the garage, and then all these cars come out, and the cops don't know, and the cops end up following the wrong car in a high-speed chase. So let me get this straight. At the end of said high-speed chase, while the bad guys, in the opinions of the cops, have gotten away, Tez is on his 2003 cell phone talking to Brian with a cop right there, and the cop is simply going to write him a ticket. So, like, you just pulled a bait and switch. The cops want to know, supposedly, where Brian and his friend are. And instead, he's like, you're going to have to pay me back for this. And the cop is just sitting there writing a ticket like he got pulled over on 494 at 5 o'clock doing 80.
Yeah, well, you also mentioned within what you just said, the communication methods as they're in different vehicles. At one point, they were on walkie-talkies at the end of the movie, too.
Yeah.
So they were on early 2000s cell phones at one point. And then they were on walkie-talkies at another point. That's not that long ago.
No.
That's less than 20 years ago. Yep. And now everyone, not everyone, but like, pretty much every new vehicle built in the last 10 years, especially the new ones, well, half of them can drive themselves seemingly, but you've got Bluetooth or you've got Apple CarPlay or something, and you can just call whoever you want. You can just have them on speakerphone in your car. And back then it was like, I'm driving 180 miles an hour and I'm on a walkie-talkie. And there's a guy that might have a gun to my right also. It's very stressful.
And you're going to get a ticket. That's my favorite thing, though. Here's your ticket. Now go home and drive slowly. What the hell are we talking about here? It's hilarious.
Yeah. All right, back to Declan. Go ahead.
All right. My next statement is I'm actually glad that Brian O'Connor doesn't get Monica Fuentes at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
And so he's flirting with her the whole. It's obvious he's interested, and even Roman says, like, there's one thing that always gets me in trouble. It's being dumb and getting in trouble with the law. With you, it's always a female. Like, you're always getting in trouble with the female, and that's what deraids our plan. And even though he like courts her and makes his attempt at her, he doesn't get her at the end of the movie. He, I think, is still in love with Mia Toretto. Which eventually this franchise comes back in, obviously.
Were
so
they
the
thinking
Torettos,
about that, perhaps?
Maybe. And there's only subtle hints right at He Roman asked him when they're at the pier about is that why you let that guy go in L.A., which is a clear reference to Vin Diesel's character of that's why you got let go and that's why you got out of the cop, being a policeman. But I think him not getting Monica Fuentes number one was good for that movie, but also for the bigger scheme of the franchise. Because if he gets Monica, does she come back in to the fold? And by the way, I haven't seen all of these movies, so I'm not sure.
I don't think she came back at all.
Yeah. So I like that he doesn't.
Never mind. She did. Yeah.
She does. Okay.
She's in Fast 5. Yeah.
She's in Fast 5. Yes. But he doesn't get her, which would have complicated things with him and Mia, which I like about this movie. That part I'm a fan of.
Actually, and I've never seen Fast 5. That's the one that a lot of people rave the most about. She had an uncredited camo in Fast 5. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are screaming at their YouTube channel or podcast saying, you idiots. I have no idea what role she plays in Fast 5. But that's 3 movies from
I've
them.
only seen I've seen Tokyo Drift, which is just awful. But I've seen the next one in this franchise's order, and then I haven't seen any of the other ones. So I've only seen one more of these that you guys haven't seen.
I love this. I love that we're doing this together for the first time. Yeah, but maybe they were, because Vin Diesel was kind of accusing them of, this is basically just a whole new story with zero connection to the only connection is just like Brian is still around and he moved to a different city and there's a couple of vague references. But by the end of this movie, they're clearly thinking about what you said. Because if it was just kind of this is the last one, why would you not have them together at the end of the movie unless you were planning for something bigger down the road with a different character?
So is this the script that Vin read, or was there a plan to make it more connected to the first one, and then he said, I'm out, and so they had him move? Because it felt like they did a good job of establishing Brian's new life.
So there's a write-up on the Wikipedia page.
I love Wikipedia, man.
About this.
It's always there for me.
So let's see here. Vin Diesel. So because I think there were 2 scripts written for this.
That makes sense.
Let's see here. He refused. Where did I see this? Yeah, he chose to appear in the Chronicles of Riddick. According to Variety magazine, he was less taken with what the screenwriters had in mind for the film. Quote from Vin Diesel: "They didn't take a Francis Ford Coppola approach to it. They approached it like they did sequels in the 80s and 90s when they could just drum up a new story unrelated for the most part and slap the same name on it." I think I did read somewhere that they had 2 different versions, and maybe he didn't even like the version that he was originally in. So, so there you have it. I love the way that they trash talk each other in their cars during the street races. So, who was the woman again in this movie? It was
Suki.
Suki.
Yep.
So Suki had a couple just the corniest "bend over, boy" was one of them. "Woo, smack that ass" was another one. So they're just like,
it's corny as hell.
Their lives are on the line here as they're driving this fast and they're banging into stuff, and yet they're just happily dishing out these corny quotes to each other.
How about the drawbridge at the start, that first race where he has access? I love that one. He has access to a drawbridge.
What was your guys', because there's so many chase scenes or race scenes in this movie. My favorite one was right in the middle of the movie, and it was like they were doing like a tag team street race, and Brian and Tyrese, I guess, they had to go down and back and then down and back. And Brian was behind going into his leg, and so he plays chicken with the opposing car. I love that scene because there's only one way. You're not going to be able to just beat him, so you got to find a way to throw his car off. And he plays chicken, and he doesn't decommit from his line. I thought that was just a great heart-pounding scene. All in.
I think I like the first one because the drawbridge thing is so stupid, but yet cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the one guy's like, "Hell no!" and he like veers off, and Brian jumps the bridge. So, here's my next statement. This occurred to me, especially to Dex's point with this one, because the actual chases and the scenes became more absurd. Where one was absurd at times, but not totally. The big chase scene at the end. So the one that's the biggest one at the end is basically a ripoff of Smokey and the Bandit, Dukes of Hazzard, all of that 80s. And look, the technology improved. But if you go back and watch, Smokey and the Bandit did a marvelous job of what? Making the cops look like morons. The bad guys who were good guys look incredibly smart and daring. And I'm watching that, and I'm basically thinking that this is somebody who grew up watching films like that and is like, what if we update that to 2003, which, by the way, is genius because it's going to get people. But this one, more than the first one, it really occurred to me that this is a very Smokey and the Bandit, the Dukes type of approach to cars.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that for sure. Inspiration. I'm out of statements. Dex, do you guys, either one of you guys have any extra ones before we get into the rankings here?
I'm out of statements too.
Okay. Let's go.
All right.
Let's do it.
So, all right, we're going to dive into the 2 main ranking categories, definitive villain ratings and the overall entertainment value here on a 1 to 10 scale. But this episode of Action Movie Rewind on Mackey and Judd, presented by our friends at Meadows. If you want to get out and enjoy the last month and a half here of summer golf into fall golf, the Meadows at Mystic, great place, Dex.
It's a great spot to enjoy a round of golf. They have the great thing about Meadows at Mystic Lake, because I play a lot of just, hunky-dunky courses around. The great thing about Meadows is they have the GPS on their carts. Because I can't. Really, I'm not necessarily a pin seeker, as they say, right? But I still like to know the number of what club I should be able to hit. I don't. The range finders, they don't always work the best. They're always moving. It's hard to get there. The GPS infused carts help you out. They have a great a golf shop and apparel shop there too. There's nothing worse than when you need an extra sleeve of balls and they're just like, just three sleeves there. They have a full service golf shop, which is awesome. You can book your tee time at the Meadows at Mystic Lake. It's just down the highway here from the Twin Cities in Shakopee and Prior Lake. Go visit them, Meadows at Mystic Lake, golfthemeadows.com to book your tee time.
Also, our friends at Equity Partners have been a great help to people that are looking to sell their homes and make the process 100% hassle-free. So they offer traditional listings, all cash offers, but where they really stand out is the We Have program, where they'll partner with you to fix up your home before you put it on the market. From simple fixes to total remodels, they're looking to help you get the absolute most for your home. And when you partner with Equity Partners, you can move before you sell. You can put offers in on your next home non-contingent on the sale of yours, which is huge. Learn more at equitypartnersmn.com, equitypartnersmn.com, or call 612-999-2244. All right. So the first category here is the definitive villain rating. The criteria we use are how iconic is the villain, how ruthless, and how charismatic are they. The best villains we have reviewed on a 1 to 10 scale are Cyrus the Virus from Con Air. He's our only 10 right now.
So good.
Castor Troy from Face Off is a 9. And then we have Dom Toretto from Fast and the Furious, the original, is an 8.2. At the bottom of our rankings, not counting the personal demons from Top Gun, which really was no villain in Top Gun, the British car-loving gangster from Gone in 60 Seconds is the worst villain we have reviewed at a 1.3. Senator Trent from Hard to Kill at a 3.3. And then everyone else is kind of in the middle. The aliens from Independence Day, Chong Li from Bloodsport, Surfer Bodhi from Point Break, the F5 Tornadoes from Twister are all in there. So we'll start with Judd here. Carter Verone is the Argentinian drug lord here from Too Fast, Too Furious.
So, as I said in statements, the rat scene is fantastic. Like, that's a really well done, scary scene. Is he iconic? No, he's not. Is he more of a cliche drug gangster? Absolutely. I'm giving him a 4. I would give him a 2 if not for the rat scene. I just don't think he's iconic. And like, the whole thing was like an Al Pacino ripoff. It didn't feel like they did nearly enough to establish the character. And like at the end, I don't even think he dies, right? He just gets arrested. Yeah, he just gets...
They kind of left it open for him. I don't know. Maybe he comes back. I have no idea.
I just didn't think he was that great.
So, and what was your score again?
A 4.
Okay.
He does not come back, by the way. He does not.
And nor should he.
He's ruthless for sure, because of that rat scene. That like, there's definitely on the ruthless scale, he definitely is near the top of that scale. But in terms of iconic, and he's just, I don't know, there's nothing really special about him. I give him a 5. I give him a 5 out of 10. I don't think he's completely irrelevant, but he's also in this franchise just once, and he's clearly a bad dude, but I don't think he's that iconic either. So I'll give him a 5 out of 10.
All right, maybe I feel like usually I'm on the high side of all of these here. I'm like the most optimistic or something, but I gave him a 2 because he's just a generic replaceable drug lord.
Yeah.
He could be anyone. He's not a prominent.
He's
a fairly prominent actor because he's been in some stuff, but he's just a guy, if you will. He's a backup linebacker that could be swapped out. He's a special teams guy. He is fairly ruthless. But at the end of the day, he did remove the rat from that guy's stomach. So he gets points docked for not being full-on ruthless. He's not really iconic. Maybe somewhat within the franchise he's iconic just because he's, one of the villains. But I give him a 2, which makes the score a 3.7, making him the third worst villain we have reviewed, just above Senator Trent from Hard to Kill. So
that's fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
Okay, overall entertainment value on a 1 to 10 scale. We used to call this the 1 to 10 Seagal scale, and a couple people have said, why don't you still rate it based on Seagal? So it's up to you, Judd, if you want to say that it's worth, X amount of Seagals, or you can just go with the standard 1 through 10 scale. But how entertaining was Too Fast, Too Furious?
All right.
And before you give your... Con Air is a 9.7 out of 10. Top Gun Maverick a 9.3. Independence Day an 8.7. And the Fast and the Furious original was an 8.5 when we reviewed it. The worst movies we've reviewed are Gone in 60 Seconds, 4.7, Hard to Kill, a 5, and Bloodsport, a 6.
Okay. On the Seagal scale, I'm going to give this, and I think I was pretty positive about the original Fast and the Furious. I'm going to give this one a 7, which I think is probably a notch or two below what I gave the original. This is a fun film. The original was fun and was much more, I felt, cohesive at times. Scary. The scary thing is, Vin Diesel's not wrong about saying that this feels like they brought the franchise back, but it's still genius. But yes, I think in fairness, most importantly in fairness to the first one, which I think was clearly above this one, I'm going to give this one a 7.
Wow. Okay. I give it a 6. It's a 6 out of 10. There's funny moments. It's almost like hilarious nostalgia from that early 2000s of the fashion trends, and there's some goofy times with Tyrese and Paul Walker that I enjoy. I love Eva Mendes, but the plot in general is so messy. Like it's such a messy plot. The writing is not great. But there's some groundwork that is laid for the next movies. Like I would probably stop and watch some of these scenes if it was on TV. I don't think I've seen this like probably 4 or 5 times, but it's probably legitimately been like 10 years since I've seen it. So it's a 6 out of 10 for me. It's not as good as the original. It's a 6 out of 10.
It's a 5 for me. It's fine. I don't hate it. It's just kind of a movie.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people that love this franchise might even say, yeah, business kind of picks back up once you get past like the second, the third, especially Fast 5 is very highly regarded. So it's fine. I don't know that I'm glued to this if I see it on TV necessarily, but I do love me some early 2000s Paul Walker, and it's a 5 for me, which makes it a 6 collectively, tied with Bloodsport as the third worst action movie we have reviewed in the rebooted version.
I feel that's, you know what? I mean, Bloodsport's awful. I feel that is a terrible injustice to the Fast and Furious franchise.
I mean, it
is what it is.
You can have your opinion.
It is what it is.
This is a democratic process here.
It is.
Yep.
It is indeed. Stop
It's
the
just
steal.
below Twister. Point Break is a 7.8. Face Off is an 8. Air Force One is an 8.2. So just to give some context. So all right. So I got a. Well, we were going to do Bullet Train at some point, which is still in theaters.
I'd like to do that.
So we could do Bullet. It's been out for 2 or 3 weeks now, so enough people are starting to see this movie. Do you guys want to do Bullet Train with Brad Pitt, which is currently out for next week?
I would love to do it.
I'd prefer to put it off until the following week when training camp practices are done.
I thought
That's
that was
fair.
done.
Training camp with fans is done. Access will be full for us next week. So I'd prefer to do it once I don't have training camp to go to all day.
It
Should be the following week.
We can do that. Okay, then I'm going to give you guys a few other options here. I'm going to give you like 2 or 3 options to choose from, and we've done some of these, but not all of these on the old iteration of this. But The Rock with Nicolas Cage. We've already done a bunch of Cage movies though.
Yeah.
Days of Thunder with Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise. Ooh, I've never seen that one.
I've never heard of it. I don't know what that is.
Oh, you never heard of Days of Thunder? It was big.
Oh,
Tom Cruise, NASCAR driver.
Yes.
oh my God.
Yes,
So it's not
Tom
in the race
Cruise.
car.
One of the
Tom
biggest
Cruise,
movies
Top
of his
Gun,
career.
Tom Cruise, NASCAR driver.
This was Tom Cruise riding the wave after Top Gun, after Risky Business, and right before he got into the Mission Impossible stuff.
And not to be confused with Cocktail, which also was Tom Cruise, right?
That was not an action
Nicole
movie,
Kidman?
No.
Okay.
but yeah, this is the first of 3 Tom Cruise Nicole Kidman movies. I believe
probably where
this
they
is the
met.
year they got married. Yeah,
Probably where they met.
let's do
On the
Days of
set.
Thunder, dudes.
It keeps our car train on, and we'll even do Bullet Train afterwards. So like we got we got a theme going here. We can ride out this theme.
Days
Okay.
of Thunder. Okay, cool.
All right, there it is. Action movie rewind here on Mackey and Judd. Deep dives into some of the most popular, prominent action movies of all time.